Okay, peace, love, and blessings, y'all. What's happening? It's your brother Key. Welcome to the workshop. Well, the inner workshop. That's what we on tonight. It's a late show, but we gonna knock this out. Y'all probably seeing this at whatever time you're seeing it, but at my time, it's almost midnight, and I have something that I really got excited to bring to you all. I'm gonna do my best to stop saying and because I'm really excited. So today is kind of like day 53. I'm also gonna be combining this video because I was gonna do a separate video of like something else, different setup to continue this 7:30 journey, but it just seems like this is a tad bit easier, and it's just I'm just going with the flow as well. So day 53, the the title that I came up with is the bed that you lay in, right? So when I'm speaking of the bed that you're laying in, make sure that my mic is it valid, y'all? I hope y'all can hear me. I hope it's valid, cause if it's not, all right. Hopefully it's good and y'all can hear me, cause I'm a little backed up from the mic. Um, yes, I'll hold it close to me right here. So yeah, day 53 of 730. The bed that you lay in. So this is very interesting to me because when I was thinking of the bed that you lay in, what came to mind immediately was, what if you didn't make your own bed and it was made for you, right? So when we think of that, I want you to bounce back to the episode that I spoke to. The first episode, I'm pretty sure it was yesterday or the day before. The episode 1 or episode 2, where I spoke about your parents. I was speaking about how I appreciate my parents and I water the roots, and how I choose the perspective of looking at what they gave me instead of what I didn't get, right? Because that leads to certain levels of bitterness and anger and all of this stuff. So what if your parents made your bed for you, which they did because they led you, they taught you their ways, whether your parents are in your life or not? The guidance that you get before you know how to make your own bed and form your own habits that you are living with and you're okay with, somebody else makes your bed for you. You know what I mean? And the scripture that I came with when I thought about this was a scripture that had to deal with somewhat of like abandonment, and also like kind of like if your parents or the people that raised you screwed you over in a way. So we're going to go to Psalms chapters 27 verse 10. And it reads, "When my father and my mother forsake me, the Lord will take me up. Teach me thy way, O Lord, and lead me in the path because of mine enemies." So there's 3 words I want to jump into here in this scripture, and I'm going to read it one more time. When my father and my mother forsake me. That's the first one. That's the first part. Forsake is the first word I want to like jump into. To be forsaken is to be abandoned, to be given up, or renounced. Like, hey, I don't deal with you no more. I'm good off for you. That's what it means to be forsaken. For somebody to completely like just like basically banish you, right? And this is ancient scripture. This is Bible scripture. So if this is God's mind, a master teacher wrote this down and said, it's a possibility that your parents will throw you away or abandon you. Because not everybody has parents. Some people have step parents. Some people's parents are, not the best leaders, and they just gave them the crap end of the stick, for lack of better words, or just the wrong type of parenting, like maybe harsh domestic violence, all these stuff. Like, so the best thing about that is there's still a chance that you can make something of yourself, because if God is telling you that your father and your mother will throw you away, there's a chance that your mother and your father will throw you away. But I got you. So the reason why that's so important is because sometimes we feel like the people that we want, our mentors, our parents, like the individuals that gave us love or that we want love from, like if they forsake us, it's game over. You know what I'm saying? Like there's always going to be a hole in your heart. Not necessarily, because God is everywhere all the time, omnipresent. And if you can find God around you, that means that hole can be filled in different ways. You know, you may be able to find somebody who substitutes your mother and your father, not biologically, but maybe spiritually. You know, you ever heard of a spiritual mother, spiritual father, a mentor, you know, an uncle, stuff like that, that helps, because there's a very powerful proverb. It takes a village to raise a child. So essentially, we need multiple inputs in people that gives us love, but you can't replace a mother and a father. You can't, but you can, but only with God. You know what I'm saying? Like that's really the only way. You can't make everything yourself, and you can't see the back of your head. You can't have every single thing in check by yourself. It's ill-advised. You can try. And I said can't like five times, and I don't want to tell you what you can't do, but go ahead, try it. Try and replace your parents and see how that works out for you. It doesn't. You can't do it. It's impossible. Biologically first, but spiritually and physically, and with mentorship and other deposits, it's possible. Now, this next line, the other word that is to be examined is the next part of the verse. Teach me thy way, O Lord, and lead me in a plain path because of mine enemies. Now, there's two words I want you to look at: plain and enemies. Now, plain means not decorated. It's not elaborate. Like, God, show me where I need to go and what I need to do, and lay it straight up. So the way God works, God will, if you ask God for help, God will not just show you signs in the world, but also show you pieces of yourself that you maybe forgot about, and other people will point out things to you like, hey, you're good at that. Another person says, hey, you ever thought about doing this? You know, you're pretty good here. And when you start to put the pieces together, you start to see like, at first, you know, like you may think that you're only right here without God. But with God, you're able to structure your life, and all of the pieces of yourself start to work with one another. So you want it to be simple and ordinary. Not that elaborate, not extra, but very simple. And God will show that to you. And your enemies, and it says in the last part of the verse, lead me in thy plain path because of mine enemies. Your enemies are your bad habits, maybe the things that you're afraid of, the pieces of yourself that do not help your purpose, but instead cause chaos every time you operate in it. And only you know your enemies. So whatever you do, monitor yourself, and also monitor your surroundings, monitor the people around you. And as you walk through this path, again, this bed that was made for you, when you look at this bed, like you might say, you know, I don't really want to lay in that bed. How about I get a new mattress, right? God, how can I get a new mattress? How can I get some new sheets? And how can I make sure that where I'm sleeping is, you know, like it's home and it's not like laying in trash? And ask God to speak plainly, but also pay attention to yourself, because God will show you things inside of you that you need to bring out, and also things around you that you need to take in order to align yourself. So moving on, this verse, this one is kind of like, it's not a contradicting, but it's kind of funny that I'm bringing this verse. Exodus chapter 20. Verses 12, honor your mother and your father, that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. So this is what really came to me after I started to, be more thankful for my life, and also have a logical perception and perspective on what my parents did worked for them and helped me get to a certain place. But now that I'm of age, I have to now make sure that I have something working for me without being so pissed off at what I didn't get. So you have to divorce the things that no longer serve you, maybe the traditions, the things that your parents passed to you. With love, you have to realize that that's what it was. Like sometimes, like I spoke about this in the yesterday video, if you was given a bottle of water that was 16 ounces and all it could carry was 16 ounces, you can't get mad because you ain't get a gallon. So what this verse is saying, honor your father and your mother. If your father and your mother only gave you 16 ounces of water, take that 16 ounces and see how you can add it to more. Maybe your capacity is a gallon, but your mother and your father gives you a start. You're now supposed to go and seek those other ounces in order to match and add to it to get that gallon. So your God is showing you, like, you're going to get blessings in life. But I first want you to honor your mother and your father. Why? Because that's technically your genetic code. So even if they weren't the best in everything that you wanted them to be, or they was not the best in like 80% of your life, but you only had 20%, which is the life that you was given, the strength, and maybe some skills or some gifts or certain thing that they loved that was passed to you. So now you have a keen insight and an outlook in a specific area. Like if my dad was a blacksmith and my grandfather was a blacksmith, I may not want to work on iron, but I know how to build structures of iron. I know how to bend it because I grew up watching that. Let me love the fact that I know and I could recognize different sorts of metals and irons. And maybe if I get into building, I could say, that's kind of rusty. Like, who told you to use that? You'd be like, who are you to recognize what real iron is? Like, well, because I honored, and you could say this to yourself, or just it's a realization, because you honored your mother, your father and your grandfather, you have a sort of a cache of information in your brain. So that's really what God is asking you to do. Not always just go and kiss your parents' feet and stuff like that, but honor what you was given, your genetic code and what you make up. Because if you hate your mother and your father, you're essentially hating a piece of yourself, and that never leads you to the right place. So you have to learn how to divorce certain things with grace, but essentially loving what your mother and your father gave you is a way to be, like just accepting to what God has to give you. Like it makes your capacity bigger. Because let's say you're just pissed off that your parents again did not give you a gallon. What if God is like, bro, like, can you just be happy that you got 16 ounces? I'm gonna fill you up. The well is right there. But the only way that you can have that well or get to that well is walking through the love that you have for your parents. But yeah, if you mad at your parents in the direction of where you're supposed to go past them, or maybe see their face or see what they have, and you're supposed to walk in that direction, you turn around and you mad, now you dehydrated and you walk in the opposite direction. Love is always a solution. You have to manage your hate. You have to manage your anger. You have to, if you are going to hate something, make sure that you know why you hate it. And once you come to a level of comprehension, you may not even have the capacity to hate it. Or if you do, it's very much like, it's like a code of ethics. You're like, I hate that because. Not just I hate that and you're all emotional. Like there's a logical reason to carry that heavy weight, because hate is a weight. It's not as light as love. Hate, vengeance, anger, all of these things, all of these frequencies carry some type of weight. And if you just carry it just because, your heart will be heavy, and guess what? You will feel it, and people will sense it, and it'll, believe me, you know somebody who hates their parents and hates their family. They're just not, they don't have that love in them, and they're not able to express life the way they should. You know those people. But moving on. Next, because I'm talking about parents, but I really want you to also recognize that you can make a decision to love or hate what you was given, and out of that decision, you will either be, your eyesight will either be widened, or you will start to squint. You'll just, your face will change, your heart will change, you'll become jaded in certain areas. So be careful of these things. I'm not telling you what you can and can't do. What I am saying is everything comes with some level of consequence, even loving. So that's just something to throw out there. And there is something, a study that I saw. You can look this up on YouTube. It's kind of wild. There were flies in a jar. The fly in the jar experiment, where these flies were put in a jar and it was like a cap on top. And the flies, after a while, just kept hitting the top, and after a while they couldn't get out. When these flies reproduced, the children, or the offspring of those flies, even when the cap was off, when the roof was off, when the ceiling was off, would not fly past a certain limit because it was encoded into the DNA. When you get to a point where you're like, that is not working for me, thank you for your 16 ounces, thank you for the love, but I can see something different. I see something else. I don't want to be a blacksmith. I want to open up a lodging company. Maybe I want to build structures and build the Eiffel Tower, or maybe the Mali Empire, something like that. I don't want to just work in a room. I want to build rooms. You have to overcome those limiting beliefs that maybe were programmed into your DNA. And when it comes to parents, depending on if they came from like very tough times, because my family, my mother and father are both immigrants. They came from Grenada. Sometimes they just see work, and get the money, pay the bills, and do that. Like I couldn't do that anymore because I had screws in my back. So God was like, I need you to use your brain, because you can't work hard like your father and working in a room with superstructure that has no type of freedom to be artistic. You can't do that, which is kind of like what my mom's did. She did security for a long time, private investigator type vibes. And there was no room for artistic expression or like, don't do labor. Don't work for money. Don't trade your time for money. Are you insane? How are you going to pay your bills? And instead, I'm like, I'd rather have my money work for me. And I'd rather work really hard, maybe for like a week or a month, and get paid almost what somebody would make in a year. Or if I am going to work every day, I'm multiplying that money. Like, my payroll isn't like just $10 an hour. I'm taking that 10, turn it into 100, take that 100, turn it into 1,000, take that 1,000, turn it into 10,000, etc. 10,000, 100 into a mil into something else. So that is the type of mindset, like that growth mindset, that capacity, getting outside of that jar. even if you're the offspring of somebody who worked incredibly hard. And I believe that if your parents worked crazy hard, and if your parents were immigrants, or if you're an immigrant, it's your responsibility not to work as hard. It's your responsibility to not work as hard, but instead work smarter. Okay? You have to think differently, right? And use what you have inside. Acknowledge your roots. Realize the state of being, the life that you're living. Look at what is the limiting beliefs and divorce yourself from that. And when you see that vision, you have to make sure that you know where you're at. Know where you are. And then when you start to fill in those pieces, at least you start. But you can't be like, yeah, I want to be a billionaire, but you don't even know how to make $1. You're not trying to make $1. You're not even trying. You're not even trying to find the resource. You know no billionaires or no millionaires. You know no people who actually touch money like that, but you want to be that. You'll never become that, because you have to get around the individuals who are already doing it in order to catch up. And this is the internet. You can connect with somebody such as this, or maybe in person. Get out, figure it out, get outside of your genetic code and start to add to that ladder. Add to that DNA code. You're connecting, you're contributing, you're continuing. That's what your job is. Take that torch and start to light some other souls up. All right? So you have to envision that destination, that goal of yourself, and make sure that you contribute to it daily. Daily. Have some new habits, better information, right? Mentorship, discipline, better forms of struggle. Don't just work 20 hours the same way that your parents did, and it's not what you want to do, because that's counterproductive. Take those 20 hours. If you're going to work the way your parents did, do it maybe 25%. Work 5 hours hard, and then make the other 15 genius. The only reason why you're working those 5 hours is so if somebody wants to check your credibility, like, you don't know what no hard work is, you pull out your resume like, you sure? All right, that's what I thought. Because you got to start from somewhere. Okay? If you want to get to that finish line, you got to get off the starting point. You have to. Right? When that shot go off and you start running, and then you in your lane, you got to start from somewhere. Even if you hitting laps, you got to start from somewhere. Right? So make sure that you have an appreciation for the hard work, but don't kill yourself with it. All right? And hard work can make you feel a certain type of way. It can make you be, like kind of jaded towards hard work, or jaded towards, like struggle. But you have to develop a reasoning mind. You have to be, you have to figure it out, like, was the hard work necessary? Like, my parents were immigrants, or my parents did come from here, like somewhere along your lineage. If your father wasn't a hard worker, your mother wasn't a hard worker, and they worked smart, I guarantee your grandfather or great grandfather was the one that started it and was hard working. Somebody got to start it. So, excuse me. So yeah, you got to check that. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna close with this. Know the difference between hating a thing and hating what that thing produces. Here's an analogy. You can hate what you were taught, but hating who taught you without some type of comprehension, some type of wisdom, or knowledge of that person or that thing can lead you to bitterness and then put you on the path of seeking vengeance and anger. Every villain has a story of maybe somebody they lost, a part of them that was hurt, or something, like, so they're angry, they have that hate. I was just watching X-Men I'm kind of like a geeky nerd in that area. I was watching X-Men First Class, and Professor X and Magneto are two separate sides of the same coin, right? Both leaders. But Magneto is on that type of time where he'll kill you. He'll smoke your boots. Professor X is talking to you. He's not killing no, but he's not trying to kill no humans. Right? Magneto is kill all humans because they're in the way. Now, when you look at Magneto grew up under tough, like in the movie. His mother was killed in front of him so his powers can come out. And he hated the Nazis that put him into that. Well, I probably should bleep that out because we won't talk about them. But they was angry, right? So Professor X was also a mutant, and he was told, how was I going to use this example? Oh yes, so you could hate Magneto, or you could be like, yo, like, man, he's evil. You know what I'm saying? Like he's an evil mutant. Like he just has powers and he just crushes the world, not knowing that the first time he actually had to use his powers or had to use what he was gifted with, he was destroyed internally. The part of him that was most sacred or what he cared about most was ripped from him, and he went down the path of vengeance. He ended up killing the dude, by the way, who violated him, if you watch that movie. But the point of me saying that is, I used to hate hard work, and I used to hate kind of like the way my parents would maybe talk to me or, you know, teach me certain things. But I went through a deep investigation, and I also had a few conversations with family and also with God and also with myself. Like, you know, your parents did teach you some things, and maybe you didn't get enough hugs, but why did they do that? What were they going through? What was their state of mind? And every time I find myself being angry, I find right next to it the reasonable, you know, hypothesis or just the explanation, like they're human too. Maybe they haven't mastered every part of themselves and they don't know how to give you what you want. So, yeah, you may hate how the communication was, but don't hate that them, or don't hate that connection. Again, you can hate Magneto or hate the villain, but why don't you read their story first and come up with a empathetic mind? So that's why I said, you know, like, you can hate something, but try and get some wisdom and some knowledge on that darkness, or that to kind of reason how you feel, because you'll wear yourself out carrying all that hate, and it'll take you over. It will. Love is the way. Sometimes separation is better than hating, right? Sometimes it's better to step or just divorce yourself from something instead of carrying that anger or that heavy abyss or black hole. So yeah, all of that to say, you know, like the bed that you lay in, you know, how you think, the habits that you have, how you feel about certain things, what you want to check in your life. Like if your parents gave you a twin size bed, but you want a California king, you got to work for it. Right? And guess what? Before you get that California king, practice making that bed. Maybe get rid of the sheets. Right? Maybe get rid of some of those habits. Get rid of some of those things that, you know, they taught you, and put some other things to replace it. Because once you take something away, there is a space. If you don't fill that space, you know, it's basically like idle hands, and idle hands are the playground for the devil. So if you make a space in your heart or in your life and you don't put something constructive there, something destructive can take up that space. So before you throw that twin bed out and want to, California King, appreciate the bed first, because maybe that was all your parents could afford and give you, or maybe your mentor, your family, a friend, or maybe even yourself. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that message. You got to do some inner work. All this is inner workshop progression. So I'm glad that you all came through on the show. This is episode 3. Make sure that you know the bed that you laying in, y'all. All right. And if you need any type of help mentally, and you're not exactly sure, how to talk to yourself and love yourself, and maybe even you want to learn how to, access God. You want God to acknowledge you, and you want to acknowledge God properly. Hit that link down below and get my free ebook, Mental Virus Protection. It's sort of like a prayer, but it is also a mirror that I want you to look at and acknowledge can be real. If you're in a lower place, it is possible for you to get to a higher place. No matter where you're starting, even if you're in rock bottom, you can get to the top. But with discipline, hard work, consistency, and self-appreciation. All right? I love y'all. Stay blessed and less stressed. Peace out.